Okay, welcome.
Okay.
I'm going to be able to share the
Rabbi, do you see me?
Nope.
I try to start video and it says you cannot start the video because the host has disabled it. So maybe there's a different link for me.
No, you got the panelist link. If you took the one that you came in your email, right?
Yes, but I start video and you said you have to enable it.
Okay, let's see. I'm gonna 1 second here. Just trying to, how do I enable your video more? Chat, make host. Maybe I make you a host. No, I can't. How do I? Aha. There's always more to learn about Zoom. Allow panelists to start video. There we go. Okay, it should work now.
Okay, I'll try. Okay, there we are.
Excellent.
Okay.
And we got the screen recording, screen sharing. We'll be able to do here at the right time. Can you see this?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, great. Maybe for next time, I'd like to get like a PDF copy of the actual mimer itself because I think it's nicer when it's actually the print layout. Okay, so why don't we have a nice group of people registered. Just wait a few minutes. Let people join.
Well, I could start explaining about the introduction to the Sefer, and by the time they join, that we're gonna be ready to start.
Okay. Hold on 1 second. So maybe for the introduction, I'm going to take off the share screen.
Okay.
Then people could see you.
Yes.
And maybe I'll introduce you first. So welcome everyone to the Gate of Oneness webinar. And oh, one other thing we need to do over here, we want to live stream this on YouTube. So if we hold on 1 more second, we're going to take care of this. Second here. So it says here, It says it's enabled for live streaming, but for some reason it's not letting it go through. Okay, 1 second. I don't know why it's not working on this channel. 1 second. Let me try that again. I'm gonna put on a different channel for now, and then we'll move it. Okay, welcome everyone. Now it's up live and live streaming on YouTube also. Want to welcome everyone tonight, and also to welcome our tremendously, we're actually tremendously honored to have our guest and tremendous Torah scholar here, Rabbi Shimon Chirik, who, as I've mentioned before in the promo video for this, he's also a distinguished Torah scribe and has spent decades studying the material we're going to study today. And I want to give Rabbi Chirik the opportunity to introduce this to everybody and introduce what we're going to be discussing tonight. But I also want to encourage all the people who are viewing this and the people who are going to view this later on to ask questions. I also want to encourage you to remember that you don't have to, I mean, it'd be great to understand everything you're hearing. I hope to understand everything I hear. And but the key is that we walk away with the clear understanding, the clear seeing, the knowing in an internal and deep way that there's nothing besides God Almighty. And that's really our goal tonight, is to have that experience, have that something that's going to light us up and carry us through the days and weeks ahead. And God willing, this will be a weekly class. You'll be able to join us again and also be able to watch this video again on the YouTube channel, Hope for Humanity. And so with that, I want to encourage you to just relax, enjoy, and turn it over to Rabbi Chirik.
Okay, welcome everybody. The author of the text that we're going to be studying is Rabbi Dov Ber of Lubavitch. He's the son of the Alter Rebbe who wrote the Tanya. His father actually wanted to name him Hamnuna because he is a soul of Reb Hamnuna Saba. And Reb Hamnuna Saba, together with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, were the soul of Moshe Rabbeinu. So the author is connected with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and the soul of Moshe Rabbeinu.
Shimon, I just want to remind you to translate the words because we have a lot of non-Jewish participants also, and people who may not have been familiar with some of the Hebrew terminology. So Moshe Rabbeinu is referring to Moses, our teacher, the one who brought down the Torah on Mount Sinai. And go ahead.
So he's the soul of Moses, who brought down the Torah on Mount Sinai. So whatever he teaches us is extremely significant. The specific text that we're going to be studying is called Shar HaYichud. Just over here, I'll show you. It says over here, Shar HaYichud, the Gate of Oneness. And what we're going to be learning is how to fulfill the mitzvah of Hero Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. That's actually a commandment to connect everything up into in the world to align them with the oneness of God, that there is nothing else besides God. That's actually a mitzvah. And this Sefer, this holy book, has 54 chapters. And in these 54 chapters, we're going to be learning how to do that in a deep way. Because of course, children learn about, when they're very young, we start saying this verse with them in the morning and before they go to sleep. And they learn about how God is one. and they're fulfilling this commandment on a basic level. However, there's many layers to fulfilling this commandment, and there's 54 chapters on how to fulfill this commandment on a deeper level.
Shimon, if you don't mind if I interrupt from time to time, just to add a few points over here. So one thing is that you're quoting the verse in the Torah that says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." And even though that verse says, "Hear, O Israel," Rashi, who's the greatest commentator on the Torah, explains that really applies to the entire world. That's the entire world has the obligation, has the responsibility to know that there's nothing besides God Almighty. And in fact, the Chida was a great rabbi. In the 1800s, he was approached by a non-Jew who asked, "How can I connect myself to God Almighty?" And the Chida answered him, "Say this verse morning and evening, that every human being is meant to recognize and know and have that internal knowing that there's nothing besides God." So I wanted to just clarify that, because again, our job here is to bring all of humanity to this recognition, and we need to know that these verses apply to every human being.
And when you say this verse every morning and every night, you get energy to do whatever you need to do throughout the day. So that's why we're focusing on this specific commandment, because this commandment gives a person the energy to do everything else. So it's a very significant commandment to focus on. And that's why this is called Shar HaYichud, the gate of oneness, because it's a gate to fulfill this commandment on a deep level, to really understand and not just say. And the more effort we put into it, the more energy we get. And there's this, the name of the Holy Sefer is called Ner Mitzvah. It's the candle of the commandment. And Torah is the teaching is light. So in other words, yeah. So what we're doing is that our intent is we want to fulfill the commandment. You can say it every morning and every night, and by learning this, we're going to fulfill it better. How? By deep study. We're going to learn how to do deep study of the Torah, and this deep study of the Torah will help us fulfill this commandment on a deeper level.
And one of the things that we talked about, I just want to mention to keep everyone in perspective over here, we talked about earlier when we were discussing this class, was that the experience of going through the extremely organized way that the author of this, the second Chabad Rebbe, that he explains it, is going to teach us actual ability how to guide our minds to think clearly. And so I want everyone, including myself, to recognize we're not only learning content over here, we're learning an entire approach to experiencing life, because we only experience our life through thinking. And therefore, it's so essential that we learn how to think clearly and to think consistently in a way that arrives at the godly result.
And it's something, just to show you something, when we say you can see it, we say this is the hero Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Then we say for the paragraphs. And in this paragraph, we say, Vishinantam levanecha. We should teach our children. And it uses a very interesting Hebrew word for teaching, Vishinantam. And you see that there's a double N sound, Vishinantam. And this represents repetition. And the word shein in Hebrew means teeth. That the beginning of learning, and I'm going to call this surface learning, is a repetition in our teeth. We actually verbalize the words again and again. And this, what do we verbalize? We try to verbalize carrier text. And what a carrier text is basically a text which has very few words and a lot of layers of meaning. So if I know the carrier, if I practice saying the carrier text over and over, I can keep on studying that on a deeper and deeper level. An example of a carrier text is the Chumash, is the five books of Moses. By repeating those words again and again, it's fairly short, but I can always learn it on a deeper level, But the first step, the gate, we're speaking about the gate of oneness. The gate is you got to know the words.
Right.
And then you know the definitions of the words. And the words need to be fluent in your teeth. That's the first step. For example, the Tanya, written by the father of the author, that is a carrier text. It's a text which has very few words and a lot of meaning. So that's a type of text that we want to have fluent in our teeth. We want to be actually verbalize those words, because we're going to keep on be able to learn again and again. Then in the second paragraph that we say, it says, "V'limadtem oisam es b'nechem." You should teach them, and we use different words. The first paragraph we said v'shinantam, which is the repetition in the teeth. V'limadtem oisam means actual learning. So this represents deep learning. So that's second stage, in deep learning. I'll just give you a little hint. Deep learning, we're going to first, we're going to immerse ourselves in the subject. I guess we have immersed ourselves. If we're doing Vishinantam, if we're repeating the words again and again, that's a level of immersion. Then we're going to try to categorize the information into different parts. And then the third stage is to compare and contrast the different parts of the subject, and to find out what is the core and what is explanation. What is the core concept over here? And I'll give you a little example. Whenever you want to learn something deeply, try to read more than one text regarding it. Try to read two texts and start comparing the texts. And that is going to allow you to have a deep form of learning. And I'll just show you a page of the Talmud. The Talmud is actually a platform for deep learning. And you can see straight away, it is a platform for deep learning. Because if you just look at the page, you'll see there's more than one text. There is a number of texts. So what is that is there in order to be able to do deep learning, because you can start comparing the different texts and what's the difference between this one and that one. And when you're having that discussion, you're starting to you can start to realize what's the core concept over here. So deep learning is not so much about the words, it's about the core concepts. How do we get to the core concepts? So now let's start read the introduction. The introduction, I don't know if you have a copy of the introduction.
You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a screenshot. I'll just hold it right there. I'll take a screenshot exactly where it is, and then I'll share the screen so that everyone could follow along. And just 1 second here. Okay, I got it. You could put that down. I'm gonna share the picture over here. Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to start off. Hakdama, this is the introduction. Muhus hakuntras halaz, the content and the essence of this little booklet of 54 chapters. Medaber be'inyan hayichud elokus. It speaks about the concept of the oneness of divinity. B'chol prat uprat. Every single detail, beseda ha'ishtalshalus, in the order of the way the world is created. The Esespheris, the Abiyah, the world has 10 building blocks. And actually our world has layers. There's the world of action, but then there's a world of emotion, which is also over here. Then there's the world of intellect, which is like, point to me where 1 + 1 = 2 is. There's no place in this physical world where we can point to where 1 + 1 = 2. Yet it is in our world, but it's a deeper layer of our world. So we have layers of our world. There's actually 4 basic layers of our world. There's 10 building blocks, 4 basic layers, like 4 worlds that we live in. And we're going to learn in these 54 chapters every single detail. V'hu kitzer, and this what we're going to learn is actually it's a carrier text. It's a kitzer. It's written in very short, a lot of information, very few words. From everything that a person could bring into their intellect, to bring close to the intellect, in a understanding which is enclosed and can be grasped in the brain, v'leiv, and the heart. Every single detail of the order of creation, mitzimtzum harishin, from the beginning of creation, which is basically if only God exists, then he has to put like a cover on himself so other things could become apparent to us. So that's the first thing God does. He puts a concealment on himself so other things could be apparent. You have the possibility of a story. Ad Seif Olam Asiya, every detail till the end of until our actual world which we live in, our physical world. And this 54 chapters are called the booklet of contemplation, of meditation. Many people had a great desire. It should be printed.
I just want to pause for 1 second. I just want to really focus on something that you said over here that the Rebbe is saying, which I think is so important to draw this out, is that as people who are going to learn a text, we think that the text has all the answers. But really what the Rebbe is telling us is that he's only offering us an abbreviated outline of the entire knowledge of godliness, and that we, each person has the ability. He's going to point in a direction for us to then look, and we are meant to continue from where he's pointing to fill in the rest of the details.
Right. What we're going to get is we're going to get a method in the first 9 chapters. Then we're going to get a map with definitions. Because if you don't have definitions from the words, you can't understand what any Hasidic text is saying. And so after we know the definition and we know the map, we know our way around. We know where the beginning is or where the end is. We know which direction it is. You know where something is in the bigger picture. And you know the definition of terms. And you know the method. Now you can open up inspirational text from the hidden parts of the Torah, like there's the Torah and Likutei Torah. These are 2 books that are like to have the entire soul of the Torah encoded in them, and they're inspirational text, which usually people have difficulty reading because they don't know the definition of terms. But once you know the definition of terms, you can uncode, decode, and find inspiration from such a text.
Right. That's beautiful. That's what I think it's very exciting, because what it tells me is it's accessible to me on my level. Wherever I am on my level, there's something I can gain from this that's going to increase my sense and appreciation of godliness.
Absolutely. And it will give you the skills to learn inspirational text.
Right. Beautiful.
And if listening over here and they don't know how to read Hebrew, tell them a little hint. We'll show this later. The physical design of the letters tells you how to shape your mouth when you make the sounds. And it's very easy to learn how to read Hebrew once you know that. Because once you know what sound it makes, you will see that, it's pointing where my tongue should be. It's telling me where I should put my tongue and how to open my mouth. Every letter is designed in that way.
Wow. Okay. Looking forward to hearing that.
So just because a person's say I might not be able to read, it's not difficult to learn how to read Hebrew. Now let's continue on. There are many in that time people were handwriting this, and they made a lot of mistakes. People made various handwritten copies. So it was necessary to actually print. and umuftani muftachani me'od, and I really, really trust sheyikubal lerotzen lifnei Hashem, that this holy book will be accepted and for goodwill in front of God. Kavanasi ritzuya, my intent is a good one. L'tevat kol ish, I want the good of every human. Derash Elokim, which wants divinity. In other words, this is a prerequisite for learning this book. We have to want divinity. Be'emes, in reality, in truth. V'tamim, and we want in a sincere way. V'didnuni l'zchus, and may God judge me for good. If there's anything which is not kosher in the eyes of the wise, because some wise may say, well, why are you making this so accessible and so available? So he's saying that if you use this correctly, if you want divinity, if you want truth, if you want sincerity, I'm going to open the hidden, I'm going to give you the definitions and the map of the soul of the Torah. It's going to be accessible to you. But you got to want to do the right thing. You got to want to fulfill the mitzvah of the oneness of Hashem on a deep way. And then he continues, if I make a mistake, I tried my best. Vashem Yarim Keren Yisrael, and may God lift up the horn of Israel, V'yarei Nehem, and put light into their eyes, Ka'er Hashem, like the light of God, Elam, the light of the world. B'chein, with B'chein is a free gift. So basically, we're getting a free gift. V'chesed, and kindness, v'rachmim, and compassion. B'chaya neshama, the life of our soul. V'chaya guf, the life of our body. V'natlem, should take them. V'nasem, lift them up. Kol yimei olam, all the days of the world. Al biyas agel, until the coming of the Redeemer. That is the introduction.
Well, that's also so inspiring. You know, with here Rosh Chodesh Adar, and the time Rosh Chodesh Adar we increase in simcha and in joy. So Hebrew month of Adar, which contains Purim, which is the story of the book of Esther, and the prayer here of the Midler Rebbe, the author of this holy book, is we're actually participating in fulfilling this right now, because his predecessor, the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Chassidus, taught that Mashiach told him that Mashiach would come when the well springs of Chassidus are spread to the entire world. And this is exactly what this Sefer, this book, this holy book is doing. And that's what we're doing in teaching this, is spreading this to every single corner of the world. That's our goal here. And I encourage everyone who's participating not only to take this for yourself, but we have 8 billion people we want to reach with this teaching. And this is his prayer in spending all these hours and thousands of hours that he put into writing this holy book, so that we should understand it and all of humanity should understand it in order to bring about the fulfillment of the revelation of godliness in the world and the redemption of the world. So it's exciting to be part of this.
It says also that this book, together with one other book, were written for everybody. He wrote many holy books, and certain holy books were written for certain types of people. But this one, Shara Yichud, and another one, Derech HaChaim, were written, were written for everybody.
Okay, so that includes us.
That includes us, so let's start. Shara Yichud, so this is the gate of oneness. Aleph. Hine Kvar Mavua Barichos, I already explained at length, the Kuntrus Meyuchid, in a special different pamphlet that I wrote, the Prate Efane Haispailos, different types of emotional levels, bases. And we're going to establish some goals over here that we're going to establish. Right now, there's 3 bases he's going to speak about. Base number one, like I'm using a metaphor of baseball. 3 levels. One is called, so it's called b'mayach, the brain, v'leiv, the heart, machshava, and thought. He started off with the 3rd base first. That's the mastery of the brain. There's mastery of the heart, and then there's the control of the thought. First base to control, and I'm not saying to reach because it's something that's dynamic. The first base to reach is called machshava, the mastery of the thoughts. And we're not going to master the thoughts with willpower alone. We're going to master the thoughts with tefillah, prayer, together with inspiration. Deep learning and surface learning will also be effective. In other words, the first level of the big league, the first level of the big league in Judaism is a level called the control of the thoughts. If a person is able to control their thoughts, and if the thoughts are in control, so automatically your speech will be in control, automatically your actions will be in control. So where does a person focus? Where is the first focus of the big league in Judaism? And big league, I mean from 13-year-old and onwards. And everybody needs to get into the big league. They need to get to first base. Is the inspiration of the thought. On the 3rd level is the brain. The brain. If a person reaches that level, then the thoughts is not even a problem. Then the person doesn't. The thoughts automatically are going to be thinking the right way. That's the 3rd level. The first level is control, not mastery, control of the thoughts in a dynamic way through prayer and inspiration. And I'm going to just bring something else up. I'm going to show you this. This is this. Can you see on the video? Okay, so this was put together, prayer principles, and this gives you the surface learning, not deep learning, the surface learning that can enable you to have control of the thoughts. This is going to be effective. Reading this on a regular vishinantam, surface learning, you need to just say it in your teeth again and again. This will be effective, whatever is written inside here, not so many pages, but you read this again and again, this will be effective to give you a control over your thoughts. And it is appropriate to use, very appropriate to use, if you have finding challenges. If you're finding challenges to be able to control your thoughts, there's enough information over here. If you read again and again, you will get control over your thoughts. What happens if you're there? You're just not growing. You're not really having challenges with your drive for evil. You're not with your Yetzer Hara. You're not really getting challenged for your drive to evil, and this is not a big deal for you. So then you're obligated to grow, and the only way you're going to be able to grow is if you do deep learning. That's where deep learning becomes an obligation. So in a state, if a person's finding challenges controlling their thoughts, the arena of thoughts, then this is the way to go. But once you're sort of reading this regularly, you have control of your thoughts, you're not growing, then it's important to move on to big learning, deep learning. So let's go on further. In other words, these emotional states, I'm going to call them emotional states, 3 bases, they all come through special types of meditation, through deep learning. Lefi Seder HaMadreges, they go, actually there's 5 bases. Now introduced to you, he just mentioned 3 bases. He's going to say that these 3 bases it's actually 5, and they go according to the 5 levels of your soul. Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, Yechida. Okay, so the highest level of your soul is called Yechida, and it's as far as you can stretch out your hands. I'll actually start from the bottom. Nefesh, the lowest level of your soul, is in your liver and your blood circulation around your body. That's called nefesh. That's the lowest level of your soul. Ruach is the ruach means wind. It's in the entire respiratory system. So that is the higher level of the soul. The third level of the soul is called neshama. It's in the brain. Anything above the chin and up. The neshama is in the head and in the brain. Chaya, the 4th level of the soul, it's a higher level of the soul. It's around your body, on your clothes. That is why it's very important to be respectful for this level of your soul. We don't wipe our hands on our clothes. We don't take 2 clothes off or even on it at the same time. That soul is connected with our memory, so therefore it causes us to forget things if we wipe our hands on our clothes. And then the Yechida is the highest level of the soul that spreads out as far as we can stretch out our hands all around us. And the first base is called Nefesh. We actually reach first base when we have control, when we control our thoughts. When we control our thoughts through inspiration, then our Nefesh becomes activated. And that is really the first base in Judaism. Anybody who gets into the big league, that means after 13-year-old starts the big league, the first goal is to be in control of our thoughts, and that will activate our Nefesh, which is in our blood. Once we master that, let's go to the next one. Let's go to heart. We'll get to the respiratory system. Let's activate the soul of our respiratory system. And then after that, we'll activate the soul inside our head, fully activated, and so on and so forth. Now, what's important, like there's a concept called paradoxic intent. There's a little danger over here if a person thinks, oh, I'm going to be going up the ladder, so a person's being self-centered, so that's a problem. So in order not to be self-centered in our pursuits, what we're trying to do is we're just trying to do the mitzvah. We're just trying to do the mitzvah of connecting everything to the oneness of God, and that's what I'm trying to do. But the mitzvah has standards. So how do I know that I'm actually doing the mitzvah in a deep way? How do I know I'm on the path? I'm really serving God, really fulfilling the commandment? Okay, so I'm in control of my thoughts, and automatically my speech and my action flows from that. But I am trying to serve something higher than myself. It's very important to keep that in mind. Like we say that a person doesn't say that, oh, I'm doing meditation, I'm doing his beinunus, because that puts a lot of attention on the self. So instead, the term used is tzach chasidus. In Yiddish, we say, I'm thinking chasidus, no big deal. It's nothing special that I'm doing. It's something that's obvious I need to do. It's nothing special. I'm not better than anybody else. Now, however, on the other hand, there are standards, and the first base is the control of thoughts. Now, umeyata, we're on the beginning of the third line. Umeyata, and now once we understand this, that there's levels, and the only way we're going to be able to reach any of these 5 levels is through prayer. In other words, surface learning and deep learning is still the small league. It's just giving us the tools to be able to get into the big league, the beginning of the big league, which can only be done through prayer. We need that ingredient of tefillah together with surface learning and deep learning, and that's going to give us the inspiration to control our thoughts. And that's going to activate the first level of our soul. That's what we want to do. We want to activate the first level of our soul. Okay. And now,
can I ask one question?
Yes.
Why do I need prayer? Why can't I mean, obviously there's other reasons to pray, like I want something, or I think that, these kind of points. But from what you're talking about, why do I need prayer? Why can't I just say, I'm not going to think any negative thoughts. I'll just let them, I'm not going to think them, and I'm going to think positive thoughts. I'll think that God is one, and I'll keep saying Shema.
Yeah, you can't do this. You can't activate the levels of your soul on your own. You need help.
So in prayer, I'm trying to go to myself to call on a higher power, really, to help me reach my potential.
Yes. Yes, you can't do this alone. Study won't do it for you. And willpower won't do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
You need assistance from above. I need to request that as a free gift. You don't even know what to request if you don't know your way around, if you don't know the map, if you don't know if you can't understand the inspirational text. So,
okay. Thank you.
Now, yesh levar heitev, I'm going to really explain the muhus guf inyan, in the essence of the body of inyan haizbenus, of what deep learning is benus, reflection. So in surface learning, vishinantam, we have to repeat the ideas in your mouth, in your teeth. It makes a good atmosphere. But in deep learning, you see that the double N, the double nun, we repeat the ideas in our head. And that's a very big difference. That's why we have comparative text is very useful, because it makes it easier to repeat in our head. Sometimes, like, I'm going to repeat this over again, like it's a little, you might find it boring, but if you make it fun and you say, well, let me compare, what's the difference between what it says about the same subject over here and what is the difference between what it says in text A and text B, or text. So that's a fun way of repeating a concept in your head. So we're going to find out now, what is this reflection in the mind? Mahi be'etzem, what is it in its core? V'ma, in its bone, v'ma yisbeinen, and also what is the subject matter. So in the first 9 chapters, we're going to learn how to use your head, how to think, how to prepare emotionally, that your mind should be thinking correctly. So the first 3 chapters is just how to think. The next 3 chapters is about preparing emotionally. Then the next 3 chapters after that is the general map, so you know your way around in a very general way. And then what exactly we're supposed to think about, that's going to start in chapter 10.
Okay, so could you pause for 1 second and explain to me how I'm listening to this? We got 54 chapters. We'll cover a few lines a week. Hopefully we'll finish it quickly, in less than 54 years, but we're not really in a rush. But how do I make sure that, number one, I am remembering from week to week what I learned the previous week? And number 2 is that I'm able to take what we're learning here and start to apply this, so that I don't get lost in the details, that I'm trying to pull pieces together. How do I make this practical?
Yeah, you need surface learning. You can buy the English version of this on Amazon from Benjamin Walters. The Gate, it's over there. It's called the Gate of Unity. It has explanations, but also the dark letters is a direct translation. Basically, the text over there is dark letters and bold letters and regular letters. letters is the direct translation. So what you want is a carrier text. If you don't know Hebrew, you want to carry a text and you want to repeat it like regularly. You want to repeat the carrier text regularly so it becomes fluent in your teeth. And that's how you don't get lost, because you keep on touching base with what you learned on a deep level.
So if I'm going to do it superficially, then it's going to stay superficial, and it's going to be hard to connect the dots. You're saying it has to be repeated to continually get that. The mind starts to connect it together, and it starts to stay inside of me.
If you have a little bit of explanation, for example, you're using what you're being taught now to give you those deeper ideas, to give you at least the definition of terms, right? Mm-hmm. Then you repeat on a superficial level what you studied. So you never lose what you learned, and then you're going to be able to connect the dots.
Okay, so I'm going to post this for everyone as all the attendees. I'll post a link to that so they can have the benefit of looking this up on Amazon after the class.
Yeah, you're going to need to buy this on Amazon. You can either the Hebrew or the English, and you need to, it's not very many words, but you need to make it familiar in your teeth to keep that surface learning going as we go deeper into the text. You have to be fluent with it, and it's not much, by the way. It's the, you see this, we did 3 lines. There's so much information in 3 lines.
Right.
But you can just read these 3 lines and get all this information once you've heard it once. So let's go on. The essence, the content of doing reflection, deep learning, is what it is in its bone. That's the idea of looking strongly in the depth of a concept. We're trying to find the engine of an idea, and so we want to look at a concept in a very strong way. We want to stand on it for a decent amount of time, until you understand it clearly, in all its parts, and all the details. Basically, once you immerse, you need to start to categorize things into different categories. For example, there's definition of terms, there's the map, there's the way around your way around the map. Then there's things to do, the verbs, and what do I need to do to be able to achieve this? And then there's goals, and then there's evidence. How do I know I hit the goals? So there's already categories, and whenever you're studying anything, you start dividing everything up in the category. What is this? Is this evidence that I reached the level? What is this? Is this my goal? What is my goal exactly? So you immerse yourself in an idea. It's like learning a new language. You start hearing the language, and then you start dividing. Oh, wow, this sound, there's different sounds, there's different pauses, and you start putting the language into different categories.
So in reality, it seems that if we reflect on this, we already have these skills in the sense that natural, like someone knows how to cook in the kitchen. They understand the whole categorization of the different types of ingredients, how to put together. That someone could be a gardener, someone could be a lawyer, someone could be a baseball fan. Their brain is working in this way.
Naturally.
Now that Reb has explained to us, these are the skill set. Now, if we apply it to something that we want to make accessible to us, just as real as our kitchen or our garden is, or our businesses, we already have these skills. Now let's organize them, and now it's applied to the understanding of God and God's oneness, and now we're going to be able to grasp that too.
Right, and it's very useful to understand that there is a method, and this method is intuitive. But if we make it conscious, then we can consciously follow the method and make sure we did all the steps. And we need evidence that we graduated from step 1 and we're ready for step 2. So it's very useful to have evidence. Otherwise, we can fool ourselves and think we understand something. We don't really understand it. So it's good to make the process conscious. Now, what this whole process is, This is called Pnimius Habina, the depth of Bina. Bina resides in the left brain. It's the detailed brain. On the right brain, we have Chokhmah, which is our insight. On the left brain, we have the detailed brain, Bina. And in the back of our brain, we have our focus, our visual brain, our focus. And also right behind our forehead, we also have the ability to focus, our rational mind. But what we're trying to get to is the deepest aspect of the left brain. And the only way to activate the deepest aspect of our left brain is through mental effort. So what we're really doing is we're outlining a process of mental effort, which is going to activate the deepest part of your left brain, which is then automatically going to activate the deepest part of the right brain, because we want to be able to do that to get insight. But an insight on a very deep level. Now, when it comes to terminology, we want to learn all the terms. So therefore, wherever we see this term, we'll know what it means. The Talmud calls this process iyun, means delving deeply. In yeshiva, there are two types of studying. The boys are taught, when they go to yeshiva, they're taught, we're doing iyun study, which is deep study, or we're doing girsa study, which is more of a surface study, like vishinantam, the surface learning. In some yeshivas, they call it bikiyas, because the goal is just to know a lot, to be familiar with the text, to be able to verbalize the text. That's surface study. But his beinunus and iyun are the same thing, just in the world of Talmud, the word used is iyun. In the world of Hasidus, the same word is hisbeinunus. And in the world of just, practically what you're doing is, well, trach Hasidus. We're just thinking Hasidus. I'm no better than anybody else. We don't want any attention. We don't want any attention. If a person says, oh, I'm doing hisbeinunus, they get, it's not a good thing to become the center of attention in this process. We have to let the process just happen. So, now he brings further. He says, Sukkah brings a proof that in the Talmud Sukkah, the tractate of Sukkah, we have a question in the Gemara. When should you, if it's Sukkah and it's a mitzvah to be in the booth outside of the house, sometimes it's better to learn inside the house. So the Gemara says, if you're learning migras means to chew. It's the same thing as the shinantam, the same thing. Migras is a Aramaic word. Migras is an Aramaic word, which is the same idea as the Hebrew word vishinantam, teeth. Migras means to chew. Shinantam means, like shane means a teeth. It is a surface learning. So if you're doing surface learning, in order to be competent, bikiyas, in order to be competent in the text, do it in the sukkah. If you are doing iyun learning, deep learning, you're doing contrast and comparison of various texts with the goal of understanding the engine of the subject, you do it in the house, because you're not going to have things disturbing you. You need to be able to really focus for iyun learning. He goes on, he says, Pirush Girsa Hurak Havanas Adava Bashkaf Rashena. What is Girsa? What is the learning which is called like just chewing? It means understanding something with the first look. The surface learning walks, flows fast. Bi'ilti ikuv. You're not staying back. Ikuv means being held back by the heel. You're not being held back by your heels, and you're not standing on the subject at all. You do it like it's known. Al derech marshal, and he brings the metaphor. Hamabit be'enu al davar ma. You're looking at something. Ve'enu is be'enu klal al davar, and you don't double think. You don't think twice about the thing. Be'echuse on its worth, on its value, umahuse, and its deeper part. You don't even think about the parts, all its parts. hapnimim va'echitzonim, the inner parts and the outer parts. In other words, the outer parts is how that concept presents itself. The inner parts are the machinery, the actual engine that is moving this whole entire concept, the core concept. Not thinking about this. Rak derech ma'aber. In surface learning, we're just passing ba'alma, just passing over the subject. It's a quick read. It's like people just reading one. See, when you want to learn deeply, at least read 2 books about the subject. Then you can compare the books. Then you have a fun experience of contrast and comparison. But if you're going to just like go through a book really quickly, so it's going to be with time, you're going to totally forget about it at all. When you read it again, it's going to be, did I ever read this the first time?
Mm-hmm.
Here is evidence. Here is evidence. This is very important to divide things up into different parts. And this is the evidence. You will not be able to tell it to another person. So if you want to know that you started in the first base in deep learning, can you explain it to another person? You're only going to be able to explain a general thing that you saw by passing the eye over it. So you're going to be able to, like, what does this book say? And you're going to be just, in general, you're going to say what the book spoke about, the topics, right? Because you went through it very quickly. You won't be able to say anything professional. Tvias ayin means you're able to know like a professional. A person who's not a professional looks at a diamond, it's shiny, it's nice, but a professional looks at the diamond, knows how much it's worth, how clear it is, if it has any cracks. That's called tvias ayin. Tvias ayin is that you look at something and you know the difference. So a person that learns something deeply is going to be able to explain details, professional details to other people. Then you know you're in the first base of deep learning. The same idea applies to any concept when you just beginning to immerse yourself in the first, the first hashkafa means to look, the first look at the concept, without holding your heels back or standing on it, to look carefully into the concept. You will not know the idea to its depth at all if you're just passing through. You will not be able to. Yeah, but that's not evidence. Evidence is, well, can you explain it to somebody else with all its details? And they're going to say, hey, I understand what you're saying. If you can explain something in a professional way to another person with its details, and the other person say, I understand what you're saying, well, that means you're going to the first base of deep learning. If you can't do that, you're not doing deep learning. And that's going to be evidence that you probably don't understand what the main point is anyways. That's what it means. You will not know the bottom of it. You will not know the bottom of the subject. Now we go.
Rabbi Chai, I just want to mention to you that we're coming up to 1 hour, just in a few minutes. And I just want to know if you want to wrap it up, you want to ask people if they have questions. We talked originally about doing this for 1 hour, and I want to get clarity from you how you'd like to proceed.
I'll say one more. I want to immerse everybody in another concept. I'll give them a week to think about it. And just another few lines, but we're not going to explain it in depth. But for the mind to be able to understand something deeply, there needs a certain amount of immersion that there's an original exposure. So we're going to do an original exposure to the next concept, because this next concept, which I'm about to bring up, is going to be repeated over again and again. So it's worth doing the original exposure. Is that good?
Yes, let's hear the original exposure.
Okay. Any intellectual concept, there's always 3 parts. The first one is the oimek, the depth. The bottom of it, like they say, the depth. The length of the subject. You're going to wonder, what is that? And the width of the subject. I'm going to give you an exposure. It's he's going to use the metaphor of a river. In the river, you have the undercurrent. The undercurrent is what makes the river go. It's what makes the river have clean water. That is the core concept. Va'arech, the length of the river, generally it's much cheaper. It was always much cheaper to move products down a river than carrying it with animals. So settlements always were built by rivers. And the idea of that is that you can deliver. The idea of going down river from one city to another is delivery. You can deliver product. So the same thing is the urach, the length of a concept is, can you deliver this idea to a child? That's a second level of evidence. Can you deliver the idea to a child? This is like what a journalist would do. They study a concept and they try to deliver it to a child. That's urach, the length of a concept. But a reichev, and the reichev, the width of a concept, is the emotion. That's the main deep learning is done in the reichev. Like we want to get to the depth of the concept. There's no way to get to the depth and the bottom of the concept without doing the reichev, without doing the emotion. So this is what we're going to start off next week. The idea in a river, we have the depth, which that's where we want to get to. We want to understand the bottom of the concept, the core concept. Urach is the length of the concept delivery. To be able to get to the depth, one of the things we need to do in Chassidus and in any concept is, can you explain, can you deliver it? Can you deliver it downriver? Can you explain it to a child? Bereichav is emotion and contrast and comparison of all the details of the subject. So in other words, we immerse, then we put things into categories, and then we compare them to each other. And that process of reichav, it's like going across a big long bridge. It's the going across a big long bridge of a very wide river, and that process is what's going to give us access to the depth. And that's going to activate the deepest part of our left brain. And that's going to be the door to insight, to deep insight, because there's no direct way a human being can get to deep insight unless he goes through this intuitive process. So now I'm ready for questions.
Okay, does anyone has any questions, type them in, and we'll be able to share them here. Anyone feel free to type in the questions. While we're waiting for questions, I just wanted to, since we're coming up to Shabbos, and just to address, just tie this into the parsha of the week. I'm looking here in Parshas Mishpatim, in the book of Exodus, chapter 23. The second verse says, "Lo siye achrei rabim l'rais, v'lo sa'ane al riv lintes achrei rabim lahates." I'm going to stop the screen sharing over here. And the significance of this is that the Torah is telling us that we should not follow the majority to do something that's evil, and we should not get involved in something in a way that we're going to pervert justice. We're going to go after the crowd. And what we're seeing in this learning is the importance, the vital importance, that we learn to think for ourselves. That's what the Hashem wants in creating us and giving us all these mental faculties. We have all these mental faculties. They're on the same level as everybody else. Just like we can all see, we can all walk. Hashem gave us the mental faculties. The question is, are we going to exert ourselves and take the time and energy to learn a subject? In this case, we're talking about subject of learning about the oneness of God, but this concept applies across the board. Are we going to take the time to learn about something to make sure that we're following the right direction, that we're following the right course, that we're following the right direction that Hashem wants us to flow in? So our job is not to say, well, everyone else is doing it, therefore they must have thought about it, they must have used their intellect to figure it out, so I can therefore decide to shut mine off and say, I'm just going to go with them. The Torah is coming and specifically telling us, no, don't follow everyone else. Well, if we're not going to follow anyone else, the only way not to follow anyone else is to have our own independent compass of what is right and wrong. And that's in the Torah. And we have to use our own intellect to be able to understand it, our own ability to understand what the Torah is saying. And like Rabbi Cherek explaining so beautifully in all the different levels. First is the superficial level. We have to read the simple meaning of the verses. Then we have to, we have the ability and the gift to be able to go deeper and deeper to the many multitudes of levels. But each one of us has a responsibility on us that we cannot delegate to anybody else. It's not a delegable responsibility. We have the responsibility, each one of us. And what we're seeing here today is each one of us has access to these skills. We are already using these skills, and we should feel confident to know that if we just take the lessons here of the skills we already have and now apply it, understand how our skills are built, and then apply it to the knowledge of God and what God's will for us and all humanity is, we're going to be sure to get to the right answers. Let's see if we have questions here. Okay, can you please summarize tonight's shir in a couple of sentences? Rabbi Cherek. Now you're being put to the test of what you just said, the ability to explain it in a succinct, short way.
Okay, so let's go to what we need to do. When we study something, the first thing we need to do is we need to say the text with our mouths. And we need to be able to repeat it over. That's surface learning. The next thing we need to do is we need to be able to contrast and compare the different ideas that we're reading. And it's good if we read more than one book, one holy book on the same subject, so it's easy for us to contrast and compare. And then we want to find out what the difference is between the way something is written up in one place and another place. And that's how we get to the core concept. And if we are if we're getting good at this, we'll be able to deliver the idea and explain it in the world of a child. In other words, in the world where you have to analyze the world of a child and types of things that a child sees, and be able to see these concepts in their world and be able to explain it using their world. And if they get it, that means that you're well on the way to understand something deeply. That's in the couple of lines. But what we spoke about, the goals, why are we doing this, that you have to rewrite, you have to replay this again and start from the beginning.
Okay, so I have another question over here. Someone's reading the book through the book of Deuteronomy right now in the translation, the King James translation. And the person writes, I will continue reading through the Bible. I spend approximately 30 to 60 minutes each morning reading and taking notes. Today, chapter 28 was very powerful. Chapter 28 in the book of Deuteronomy and Devarim is speaking about the blessings that God Almighty is giving to the Jewish people. And the V'hayim Shemaya Tishma B'Kol Hashem Elokecha Lishmor La'aseis Kol HaMitzvos that's Kol Mitzvosav Asher Neichi Mitzavecha Hayom U'Nesanascha Hashem Elokecha Elyon Al Kol Goy Haaretz. And it continues. That's the first verse. And the question is, can you give me suggestions on how to read through this better?
So to get the best translation.
Right. So maybe I'll post a link.
Sorry, what? There's a translation by Sefaria.org. But even a better translation of that would be like an ArtScroll translation.
Okay. Yeah, ArtScroll. I think Kohos Online also has.
KEHOT.com and look up Chumash in English. Should be able to give you a good translation with an English that we're using. Yes.
Okay, that's a good point. And to go to the questioners, I think it's KehotOnline.com. And there's also another beautiful translation, the Gutnick edition of the translation has some good translation. Kohot has a good translation, ArtScroll. And one of the reasons that we're suggesting this is because these translations are based on the traditional teachings of the Jewish people from all generations, and that will give you the ability to go to see the deeper and deeper levels. And many of those are brought there, and then once you start to see and hear what God is saying, then you'll be able to go to deeper and deeper levels. Now, the next question we have is,
yeah, the people at that time, King James time, they actually, the Americans that came over here read it in Hebrew. They taught themselves Hebrew. So
the response to that is, I will begin a different translation in November. I will use one of these. Thank you. In my limited translation, can you make recommendations to me? So,
Rashi.
Yes, I if you want, also you could look online for the commentary of Rashi.
In Sefaria.org, I think, Sefaria.org, look at the commentary of Rashi on each verse.
I'm going to type that in. I think it's, okay, now we have another question. Question is like this. Does the length, does the depth, length, and width of the river have an end?
Well, you once you get to the depth of the river, then you get to the wellspring, and the wellspring has a depth, length, depth, and width. And when you get to the depth of that, then you get to the aquifer, and then when you get that from the aquifer, you get to the kesser, which is the crown of the crown of the concept. And then, if a person gets to that, then they can understand many different ideas. They understand the core of many different subjects in the world. Like they can understand something in medicine and something in art and something in electronics, and they see it's a common idea. So there's many levels. We're going to see that in the next page.
Okay, that's amazing. That's really exciting. So we got a great journey in front of us, and God willing, we're going to continue next week, 8 o'clock Eastern, next Thursday night. And want to thank everyone for joining us. Rabbi Chirik, thank you for taking the time to prepare this and share this with us. And the inspiration that, remember, our goal here is that by every human being becoming aware and living with the knowledge of the oneness of God, that there is none other than God Almighty, then that is what solves all the problems in creation. All the problems in our personal lives and all the problems in humanity come down to this one point. If we see that there's nothing besides God, we will feel no jealousy. We'll feel no competition. We're not going to feel anything being taken away from us. We're not going to feel the need to control others. We're not going to feel threatened by the increasing world population. We're not going to feel threatened by people around us. Instead, we'll know that God is creating all of us together every moment in time, and that we have the ability to have a bountiful, prosperous, and happy, joyful life, all of humanity, serving God Almighty, and that will bring us to the real fulfillment of creation, which is the recognition of all of humanity, that all of humanity is going to declare that there's none but God Almighty, and that's what we're participating in right now by this learning.
So the truth is, all cultures started this process, and even the scientific method is going in this process, because we're trying to look at many things in the world, and then we're trying to see, well, is there some explanation that can explain the many things? So we're trying to go from many to less, and then you're trying to say, well, behind these laws, is there some other explanation which is even simple, which applies to many of these laws? So we're in the process of going from many to less, and the cultures in history, they tried to understand everything that they did. The cow gets from the grass, and the grass gets from the sun, and what's behind the sun. Everybody tried to follow this process of understanding what is the core of creation. Well, what we're giving over here is what was passed down from Moses. So you're getting a boost over here. You're getting inside information that was passed down, and was actually a lot of this was kept secret. These definitions and this information was kept secret throughout the generations, but now it's being delivered to you. So you're going to be able to fast track connecting all the details of your life to that oneness that is behind it.
Beautiful. That's amazing and inspiring. Okay, everyone should have a good Shabbos, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. And thank you for participating. Have a good night.